Greetings and welcome back to our Swayam MOOC on British Poetry and Drama, 14th to 17th century. I am your host Manas Sharma, and today we'll begin our major discussion on Shakespeare Twelfth Night. It is one of the most enduring and one of the most beloved comedies in English canon. We have here Dr. Vandana Rajoriya with us today again, and this will be one of the most enlightening and beautiful discussion for me as well. Welcome back, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Manas. It's such a good idea to talk about a play which is a masterpiece when it comes to comedy of Shakespeare.
Very well, ma'am. Now, if we take a look at what we'll be discussing today, we'll see how this particular play, how this particular piece of art, because it just transcends just drama, how this particular piece of art defines and redefines comedies over time. Now, and we'll also see how dramatic irony, cross-dressing, and festive misrule shape the world of this particular play. Then we'll also discuss about how emotional complexity plays a major role, and finally we'll see how this particular work of art can be seen through modern perspectives, through different lenses. So if we begin our discussion with the same question that comes again with every major brilliant piece of literature, why do we still why are we able to relate with it so well? Why do we still read it in today's time?
That's a very important question. Why do we read Twelfth Night? Because Twelfth Night is one of Shakespearean comedies where you see his genius has matured completely. When you look at Twelfth Night, it is one of the most powerful comedy written by Shakespeare. And the very first thing which really comes out very beautifully is that it relates so well to the human condition. So if you ask me what Twelfth Night is about, then it is about mistakes, about love, about longing, right? About personal desires and then frustration that comes when our desires are not fulfilled. So overall, when you look at it, this is a drama of human aspirations, human desires. But then the fascination, from where Twelfth Night gets its fascination, basically you land into a world which is turned upside down, right? If it would have been just life as it is, it would not have been that enchanting and attractive. But basically, when you look at Twelfth Night, you land into a world which challenges everything we know about this world. So you land into a world where everything is reversed or changed for that matter. So it is not set in some city in England, it is Illyria, right? And Illyria you can think of as dreamy kingdom, I would say. And this is a world where men dress as women, right? This is a world where so much of confusion and chaos happens because of confusion, mistaken identities and all. So all that the world changed upside down, it gives a kind of lighter tone to the seriousness which is there beneath the superficial layer of the text. So all this this makes the play so wonderful in its impact.
Yes, ma'am. And as you have so beautifully put, it is a topsy-turvy world. Now, speaking of this particular change or reversals, let us talk about the core of comic confusion is this particular work. Viola S. Cesario. What do you make of that?
Basically, mistaken identities, role reversals, they are basically the pieces which give strength to the comedy. One of the main elements to understand about Twelfth Night is the dramatic irony, which is at the center of all the action. And this dramatic irony, it derives from the identity which Viola takes. So basically what happens, Viola dresses herself as Cesario, right? And she presents herself to Orsino. When Viola dresses herself as Cesario, she steps into the shoes which were never available to her otherwise, right? So she is dressing up as a man, and it gives her a window to look at the world from male perspective in a different way, and the understanding which her original feminine nature grants her, it makes it come out so beautifully, and it imparts much of the dramatic irony which it derives from. And then this also furthers the action of the play, because the moment Viola presents herself as Cesario, Orsino is convinced by her wit as man, so takes him in his company. Now Orsino is very much in love with Olivia, and rather than Olivia, we would say that Orsino is in love with the idea of love itself. You remember when the play opens, if music be the food of love, play on.
Yes,
So he says,
let me have excess of it.
yeah, he wants to have excess of it. So that is the key to understanding Orsino. He is not as much in love with Olivia as he is in love with the love itself. So basically he understands that Olivia would not listen to him, she is not interested in him, and he thinks that Cesario is really witty, intelligent, good enough, very promising, young, dynamic, attractive. So he sends Viola dressed as Cesario to convince Olivia of his love. Now when Viola dressed as Cesario goes to Olivia, now Olivia instantly falls in love with Cesario, the wit, the kind of presence which she has. She is really amazed by it. And now Orsino loves Olivia. Viola, dressed as Cesario, through constant companionship with Orsino, she falls in love with him, right? And here Olivia falls in love with Viola, dressed as Cesario. So she basically falls in love with Cesario. So this disguise which Viola takes, it basically leads to the love triangle, which furthers the very action of the play.
Yes, ma'am, and you are very right in putting it that way, because if there is no disguise, if there is no Cesario, then there is no love triangle, because it cannot come full circle that way. As you have aptly put, Orsino is in love with Olivia, Olivia is in love with Cesario, and Cesario, who is actually Viola, is in love with Orsino. So you have wonderfully put it that this love triangle is only possible, this action only goes forward because of that reversal of roles in the beginning.
Yes, it actually this disguise and the love triangle which becomes a possibility because of this disguise, it actually also adds new perspectives to the experience, to the play. Basically what happens is that the complexity of human nature, which happens because of appearances. So when you look at the entire play at work, when you look at the so-called love triangle, you become so aware of the nature of appearances in life, and how appearances can be so deceptive, and almost always we fall for appearances, right? So this is where the play gets its strength, right? All these things.
Now, as you have just put that appearances can be deceptive, and this is something that we not only hear again and again, we see in many works of art, but in a very different kind of radical angle of looking at it could be that if this particular deception was not there, we would not have this particular wonderful confusion that creates comedy in this
Not
play.
at all. Without this deception, this disguise, this comedy would have been an impossibility, right? So, that helps us appreciate the minor, disturbances which come, in a different way, in a better way. Basically, in this world of Illyria, you are on a lighter plane, because this is not a world which you completely relate to. So, but there is a lot of music here, there is a lot of dreaminess here, gesture is there, and then there are emotions, so relatable, right?
Of course, ma'am. Now, moving on with this theme, let us take a look at Viola. In my opinion, the most important character in this entire play. This particular character has, complexity, multiple layers to it, because she is not just Viola, she is Cesario as well. So, what do you make of that wonderful character, ma'am?
Yes, Viola, when she dresses as Cesario, she comes to realize those shades of experiences, feelings, emotions in her, which otherwise, were not at all, felt by her earlier. So Viola comes out as a very, very complex character here. She is the disguise, right? And uh, I am not what I am. This feeling, what I appear or look like, this feeling is so powerfully evident in her, and she realizes so many things which we realize. So basically, people in the play, they are not aware of the disguise. So an audience knows.
Audience knows, of course.
Audience knows the secret of Viola. So basically, the complexity which arises in her and because of her, we understand it so beautifully, so well. But when you talk about complexity, Viola is not the only character.
Of course, ma'am.
Complex, all the characters whom you come across, they basically represent the complexity of, human beings in totality. So, for instance, you look at Orsino, right? He thinks he's in love with Olivia, but he's in love with love itself, and he just wants the excess of that emotion. When you look at Olivia, so when we meet her, she is in mourning. She would not take lovers for 7 years. She would not entertain any courtship and all. But what is it that she is trying to, escape? So somehow she is scared of the responsibility, the immense possibilities, right? And maybe limitations also, which come with new associations.
It can be overwhelming.
Yes. So she just, wants to save herself from all that. And therefore, she's, kind of rejecting relationships altogether. Similarly, when you look at Viola, right? So she basically goes out there to explore the whole world, right? The new situation in which she finds herself without any guardian. So, for the first time when she lands on the land of Illyria, she has lost her brother, she is sad about it, but then she is on her own also, right? So, she has to find a place for her in this world. She has to understand the whole world and new things on her own, right? So, as she tries to, fit in, as she tries to make space for her own, desires and all in this entire world, and the wit, the intelligence, the humor which she is in a position to bring, they basically make this play, come out so well.
Now, moving on, ma'am. We just, discussed Viola as a complex character as well as, other characters here. But let us, talk more about Olivia and Orsino.
Two important characters basically, when you look at Orsino, so we know that Orsino is in love itself. What really attracts about Orsino is, how we find him. Orsino basically has experienced deep melancholy in life, and he basically is trying to, overcome that melancholy. He sees love as the agent of transformation, medicine. So basically, Orsino, you find he is so deeply sensitive, so poetic, the initial lines itself, if music be the food of love, play on, they give us, a kind of, empathetic understanding of the character of Orsino. So when he looks at Olivia, he basically is looking at the, transformative power of love. He basically is looking at overpowering, force in love to basically make him heal, to make him forget all that melancholy. When you look at Olivia, she is so self-contained, she is kind of hiding herself. She evolves. So basically, when Viola, dressed as Cesario, presents herself for the first time, she comes out of her shell, and she opens herself up to new experiences, new possibilities, new learning. So when Cesario, Viola gives that famous poetic wooing, so make me willow cabin at thy gate. So her heart opens up so romantically to the idea of love. What gradually happens in Olivia is a kind of regeneration, a kind of transformation. So when you look at a relationship of Olivia, Orsino, and Viola dressed as Cesario and Viola, and when you look at how they gradually evolve, develop over the action of the play, you realize Shakespeare very powerfully makes us see transformative power of love, regenerative power of love. So the Olivia we started with is not at all the Olivia we basically see towards the end. She has somehow taken rebirth. She is a new Olivia, and that is what makes it so beautifully prominent in this play, the transformative regenerative power of love looked at from these characters as angles.
Now, two things that have come to my mind through this particular discussion. First, if we look at the character of Viola and Olivia side by side, we can draw a parallel between them. Viola opens up to new experiences, as we have said, and Olivia shrinks down into her own shell at the beginning of the play, of course. So that's an interesting parallel.
Yes, from where I am looking at it, there are two ways of looking at it. Basically, they are in many ways similar, but they have their own individualities as well. So when you look at response of both Viola and Olivia to sorrow, to sadness, gloom, loss, basically you see two ways of coping with it. So Viola goes out refusing to yield to disgust, to melancholy, and she tries to find a new home, a new place, a new way of continuing with life, while Olivia she chooses to resign, right? And it is love ultimately which makes them both grow gradually.
Now, another thing that we can look at is, of course, it's a minor pattern there, but very worthwhile, to study. The pursuit of Olivia by Orsino. Can we say that if we look at Olivia as something that Orsino, in the beginning cannot get, cannot acquire, and as you have said that he is in love with the, idea of love itself. So, can we say that just because he cannot get her, he is much more persistent in, pursuing her?
Very true. He understands this. He knows this somehow, that I just cannot, persuade Olivia. I cannot get her. And this is what makes Ursula so relatable. All of us. Somehow we desire things we cannot get. And, we so passionately desire them. Sometimes we are, willing to take the route, different from the accepted or the normally taken route for it. So Orsino, with full realization that he just cannot convince her, when he sees a possibility in Cesario, our Viola dressed as Cesario, he goes ahead to use that possibility. If Olivia was readily available to Orsino, he is well off, right? He is stationed at a very significant position. So it is quite understandable that many matches would be open to him, available to him, right? So we do understand this. You are very right in pointing out that. So somehow the force which Orsino's love gets, it is from this knowledge of the fact that Olivia is beyond his reach. But we do not always want what we need. So Shakespeare makes us see that in the end we get what we need.
Now, let us move on to the significance of the name itself. As you might already know, the 12th night, it has a very strong cultural significance in Elizabethan period. It's counted from the 12th night from Christmas, and it's a time of great festivity. The play, as I understand it, was first, it is said that it was first produced, first enacted in front of Queen Elizabeth herself during this 12th night. So that festivity, the mood of festivity that is around the court of Queen Elizabeth, how is it, reflected in, festive misrule of the play itself?
Basically, the play, it gets its atmosphere from that festivity. Basically, you're absolutely right there. Twelfth Night from the Christmas, when it was performed in those days, it had a freshness, vigor, festivity, which basically drew from the atmosphere of the time. And this is the reason why this, festive misrule, which you find in Illyria, so much of music, fun, role reversals, everything is basically upside down. They hear wise people, basically are not the one who give us the greatest quotes of wisdom. So fools are more wise, so they are like, giving us carnal truths, they become sages of truth. And then there is, so much of music, so much of laughter. So that basically comes, the energy which the play gets, it is from the time, the entire festive misrule, So Twelfth Night, if you ask me about the atmosphere of Twelfth Night, it is that of music, fun, laughter, festivity.
And we can say that it makes the impact of play, not for us of course, but for the time and space in which it was performed, it must have made it more impactful for the audience at that time.
Obviously, the audience at that time would have related to, it's like, in that moment of festivity, you are watching something, so great and so uplifting. But then when you look at it now also, the play so beautifully connects to the human, patterns within us, that, it is equally relatable even today, because here Shakespeare is very powerful and deeply human. In spite of the festivity, the time, Twelfth Night acknowledges the fact that sadness is a part of life. Sorrows are in the, garb of life itself, So the play opens and there is so much of sorrow also. Only thing which makes a difference is that all the characters, they refuse to yield to it. So sorrow is there, grief is there, sadness is there, but they do not submit to it, they do not surrender to it, right? And that basically makes it, even more important.
And ma'am, that is necessary because, as we say that there is no significance of light without dark. So sorrow is, mandatory, it's necessary. Without that, we cannot, fully appreciate the comedy.
Exactly.
And moving on to comedy, what would you say about, the disguise that we see in this particular, the use of disguise in this particular work of art, how, it shapes comedy and how it, leads to comedic wisdom?
Yes, basically here, disguise is one of the most important, motif used by Shakespeare, because the entire action of the play, it becomes a possibility because of the disguise, right? And the kind of new perspective which Shakespeare successfully makes Viola, come out with. It also is because she is disguised as a man, right? And therefore, it actually, opens immense possibilities for the playwright, for the actors, for the audience of the time. So when the play is being enacted, the audience knows how it would work in Shakespeare's time. So there will be a man, the man will be playing Viola, right? And that man who is playing a woman will now present himself as disguised as man. Much of gender performativity, which comes because of this disguise, element of disguise in the play, it makes it such an interesting, journey.
I actually never thought of it that way because in Elizabethan time period, in time period of Shakespeare, women were not, a part of the stage.
Exactly.
It would have been, a man. It would have been a man that would play Viola. That is, something that I actually learned from this discussion right now. Now, moving on to something different, ma'am. We actually sometimes misinterpret or kind of ignore the fact that comedy in Shakespeare specifically is not just the opposite of seriousness. As we see in my opinion, as we see in this particular piece of art, we see that here comedy is not just opposite of seriousness, but seriousness focused on something different, something which is, very essential for us to enjoy life.
You have pointed out at something which is so crucial for all of us to understand, and it is something most of us do not really pay attention to. Comedy and tragedy, basically, they are both twins. Basically, they are two sides of a coin, and we have always misunderstood comedy, but comedy has never been opposite of seriousness. Never ever in any age comedy was opposite of seriousness. It was seriousness of a different kind, right? So when you look at all the comedies, the comedies which were performed in the time of Greeks, so for example, you look at Lysistrata, right? So theatre has always been soul of humanity, inner voice of humanity, right? So while tragedy makes us see the deeper concerns of larger humanity, comedy always served as a vehicle to look at our minor weaknesses, follies. So responses were different, response of tragedy was that ultimately we have to pay the price if we choose to fall, if we yield to temptation. But comedy always gave room for forgiveness, right? So we are human beings. We are feasible and fallible human beings. We err, we commit mistakes, and we just cannot help it. So ultimately, we look forward to forgiveness. So comedy is where we get this understanding that we need much of compassion, much of forgiveness to move ahead in life with happiness in a spirited way. So neither it was in the time of the Greeks nor it is with Shakespeare. None of the comedies are opposite of seriousness. It is wisdom disguised in the laughter.
So we can say it's just not humor, but appreciation of life itself, seriousness in appreciating life itself, and that that can be inferred as the core of comic vision of Shakespeare.
Yes. So all these comedies by Shakespeare, be it Merchant of Venice, be it Much Ado About Nothing, be it As You Like It, or the masterpiece Twelfth Night, Shakespeare recognizes our weaknesses, our faults, right? And also makes us laugh at them. So we laugh at our weaknesses, our follies, and we learn to forgive and learn to move on. So when you look at Twelfth Night, in the end, all the confusion when it is sorted out. So there are so many things which we witness here. So finally, towards the end, Olivia and Sebastian,
Yes, of course, ma'am.
brother of Viola. Olivia was in love with Cesario, right? And this Cesario is very much Viola's understanding of her brother, right? So the
She
one,
emulates him.
yes, she grew with him, and therefore much of what she displays to the world as man, it comes from her understanding of her brother, right? So when Olivia marries Sebastian, finally Orsino understands that it is Viola, what he longs for. So the two of them marry, and the love triangle is resolved. Then again Malvolio.
Yes, of course. Another interesting character there, ma'am.
Exactly. Shakespeare makes use of fools, very beautifully, clowns very beautifully in his comedies, So they produce much laughter, but they invoke much reflection also. So in a way, we go about clowning much in life, like Malvolio, presenting ourselves, exposing ourselves to, temptations, desires, and, manipulations of others. Feste is very important when you look at him. Much of the wisdom which comes in the play, it comes from Feste also. So there is no denying of the fact that in Shakespeare, comedy is not at all opposite of seriousness. It is something, it is wisdom in a different garb, different attire.
Of course, ma'am. We were talking a while back about the resolution of this particular play. If we take a look at this particular play, we can see how it contrasts with tragedies. The resolution of this particular play, the tensions that build before that particular resolution, they they do not invoke the same fear and pity that is invoked in tragedies. They invoke particular ideas of humor, that particular pressure that is building in tension.
Yes, because the intention is different, What Shakespeare is trying to do in comedy is he is trying to teach us lightly with laughter,
Yes, of
right?
course, ma'am.
And target is to make us understand importance of forgiveness, compassion, in life.
One of the major distinctions between how we can contrast between these two ways of depicting life. Now, if we bring this particular discussion to a conclusion, ma'am, what is it that you would like our students to take home from this discussion?
Very important. 12th night, when you look at it, there are many take home lessons, from the comedy. We must understand that comedy is not opposite of seriousness. And second thing which we must understand is that, appearances are deceptive. So, basically in this world, we have to be aware of appearances. We have to understand there could be multiple ways of looking at things, and from where you are standing, it looks different, and therefore there should be much room for accommodation, compassion, and forgiveness in life. So, if we are in a position to understand and appreciate all these things, then life would become so beautiful.
Of course, ma'am. And winding this particular journey, I would say it's not a discussion but a learning journey for me as well. We can say that in this particular work of art, in this particular drama, we can say that the disguise that is the core, that creates the core of comedy itself. We can say that irony and cross dressing and festive misrule are part of that as well.
Yes, actually disguise is what makes us all.
Of course, ma'am.
All of us are in disguise.
In some way or another.
Yes.
Yes.
So that makes it so powerful and relatable. It was really nice talking to you.
Really nice talking to you as well, ma'am. This has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you, and we'll meet again.
Thank you.
Thank you.